Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome back to our queen rearing series. Today we've come back to the queen rearing apiary where we've established a cell building colony, and we're going to start preparing to introduce some young larvae or possibly some eggs into that colony to produce some queens. And I wanted to go through some of the basic steps of queen rearing so that anyone that's got just a few colonies would be able to produce some queens, just enough for their own use and maybe to share with some friends. You don't need a great deal of equipment, and you don't need to have to be able to graft. Although grafting is an easy method, some people consider it to be one of the more complicated ways of queen rearing and shy away from it. But hopefully as we go through the season we can show you that actually it's quite a simple process. But to start with, we wanted to show you a method that can be used by anybody really, and it's called the Millere Method. So the Millere Method uses an existing frame that you take from the colony that is your selected colony for queen rearing. So if you've just got maybe 3 or 4 colonies, or between you and some friends you might have maybe 10 or 20 colonies, just pick 1 or 2 of those colonies that are the ones that show the traits that you want to reproduce in the new queens that you're producing. So it might just be that you're looking for calm bees, and that's the trait that you're looking for. So select the colony that is your calmest colony. And what we do is then take a frame of young larvae and eggs from that colony, shake all the bees off, and that goes into the cell builder colony. But the Millere Method uses a method of cutting the comb to allow you to produce queen cells that are easy to handle. And what I'll do is I'll just grab a frame of old comb that I can cut up to show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so here we've got a frame that we'll pretend we've just taken out from the colony that we want to produce queens from, and it's laid with a mixture of eggs and larvae. And if we were to just place this frame in the cell builder colony, we'd have queen cells popping up all over this comb, and it might make it difficult to be able to cut them out and then transfer them into nukes or any finisher setup that you have. So the Millere Method employs a diagonal cut across the comb to expose more of the edges to be able to produce queen cells. So for instance, with this one, if I cut and what this does is produces lots of surface area that you can then use to select for queen cells. So we've just cut this out, and you can do it in many different ways, but let's just push this out. So now we've got 3 sections, and each of these has got larvae and eggs in. And in order to prevent queen cells appearing next to each other, what you can do is just squash down every 2 or 3 cells like this. And now what we've got is an area where there are particular points that queen cells can be produced from all the way across, and you should then get queen cells that hang down from those positions and enable you to cut queen cells from the comb without them being joined together. So with this method, you're taking a frame that has previously been laid in by the queen and will have a range of different ages of eggs and larvae. And ideally, what you'd like to do is to produce something like this from a frame that's been laid in recently, where you can say the queen has just laid in it and the larvae are all pretty much the same age. So rather than taking this particular comb and cutting this shape out, what you can do, and I think a much better method of producing comb for the Millere method, is to produce a custom frame with foundation in. So you can see here what I've got is a frame where I've inserted some foundation in a standard brood frame, and all I've done is fitted it in and then put the top bar back in and nailed that into the wax foundation. So you don't need to have molten wax, you don't need to glue it in with any molten wax, and you can do this in situ in your apiary. So if you have an out apiary, you can do this while you're out on the bees, and you don't need any stoves and you don't need any heating equipment. But what we need to do now is to get some bees to draw this, and what we'll do is we'll place this into the cell builder colony just for a few days, and the bees will get onto the foundation and draw this out and turn it into cells that the queen can lay in. And we can then go through the process of nipping out different sections and making sure that we're not going to end up with clusters of queen cells all in one place. So let's take this over to our cell builder colony and pop this in and let the bees get to work on it. Okay, so this is our cell builder, and all we're going to do is to just open it up, give ourselves some room in the middle, and then pop in the Millere frame with the foundation. And then hopefully the bees will draw that out in the next few days, and then we can pop it into the colony that we want to reproduce queens from. So just make sure that all the wax is nice and straight, and then we're going to drop that in the middle. And then just close them up again, and the bees will get onto that and start to draw that out. Okay, so we've come back to the cell builder colony a few days after we put in the starter strips, and we're going to take a look to see how well they've drawn those out for us. Okay, so this is the frame with the strips that we put in, and actually the bees have worked it really quickly and they've joined up the various strips, which is a little bit more advanced than I wanted. But what we're going to do now, I think we've still got plenty of cells here that the queen can lay in, so we're going to get this into the colony which we want to produce queens from. So that's the egg donor colony, which is our colony number 21, and we're going to hope that the queen is going to lay into these in fairly quick order, and we'll then have some young larvae that we can put back into the cell builder. So let's pop over to the colony that we want the queen to lay eggs into this, and we'll show you what we do when we put it in. Okay, so we've got lots of worker cells here, and this is just going to go straight into the middle of our queen breeder colony. So this is the one we want the eggs from, and the good news is that they're fairly congested in the brood box, so she doesn't have a great deal of space to lay into. So I'm hoping that she's going to get onto that frame fairly quickly and lay into it. So we'll come back in 3 days' time, and then we'll take a look at it and see what we've got. So I've come back to the queen rearing apiary, where today we're going to hopefully set up the cell builder colony into a cloak board queen rearing system. But before we do that, I want to take a look at that frame that we put into the donor colony, just to make sure that the queen has laid eggs and we've got eggs and larvae in that particular frame. There's no point in me breaking down the cell builder colony if I haven't got the required eggs and larvae in that frame that I want to use for the Millere method. So let's go and open that one up and take a quick look and see what we've got. So it's pretty obvious which frame is the one that we've inserted, the one with Millere frame written on it. So we'll just get straight into the middle there and have a look to see what we've got. With any luck, the queen has laid some eggs on it. Okay, so this is one of the issues that you can have with a Millere frame. You can see how they've almost joined everything together. So what we'll need to do is to just make some cuts in this. But there are eggs, there's plenty of eggs in here, so I'm pleased to say that we've actually got some that we can use. And again on this side. So these eggs, looking at these eggs, they're about 2.5 to 3 days old and should become larvae within the next few hours, certainly in the next 24 hours. So we'll pop this back in because we need to set up the cell builder colony. And then we'll come back later this afternoon and remove that frame, and then we can show you what we need to do with it. So you can see how quickly the bees can draw wax comb. Ideally it would have been great to have had a wider separation between the wax comb, and if you look at it, then you can see that I put too much foundation in there to start with and should have left a bigger gap. But that's fine, we can use what we've got. There are eggs in it, so we can now go back in later this afternoon, and what we'll do is we'll cut into the wax foundation, and I'll show you how we do that. So that's it for this particular video. The follow-up video will be of this morning's work, where we'll be setting up the cloak board hive, the cell builder colony, and then introducing later this afternoon the frame using the Millere method with the eggs and larvae in it. If you'd like to watch those videos as they happen, I do release videos early on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/Norfolk Honey, and there our patrons can watch the videos as they're produced week by week. If you're not a patron, then the next follow-up video will come out next week, and then the following week after that. So there'll be a slight delay in the release of those videos. As we produce the videos, they do get released onto our Patreon page for our patrons as early as I possibly can. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do consider hitting the subscribe button, and once you've done that, don't forget there's the little bell symbol next to it, which will alert you to all of the videos as they become available. We've also got our Facebook page, which is Stuart's beekeeping basics, and please do join in the conversation there. You'd be very welcome. And don't forget, we're also on Twitter and Instagram, where you can follow our day-to-day activities as the season progresses. So it's time for me to suit up and organise the cell builder colony, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.